Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Mental Health Awareness Initiative. And today we have with us Mrs. Anita Butani. She is currently working in Abu Dhabi. She is a psychologist and caters to all age groups. Welcome to the show, Mrs. Anita. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Hina. Thank you for having me over. And hello to everyone who's listening.
So, I would like to know, ma'am, that in this current scenario right now, which is affecting everyone, the pandemic, what is your take on mental health right now?
The one thing that I have experienced and I also believe in is being mindful, one, self aware, aware about your family is the core to maintaining, as we would say in quotes, sanity through the times of uncertainty.
That is very rightly said because we do need to take care of ourselves along with the family members.
Yes.
Have you currently seen a rise in, particularly in any specific areas?
Mental health issues, definitely, because obviously the one thing that happens due to stress that comes about, one, because of uncertainty. So one, there is lack of knowledge, then there is this uncertainty of what is going to happen in the future. All these tend to add to, and also we are still grappling with the fact that we have not yet really found a surefire cure for it. So that adds to a lot of stress, which leads to a lot of mental health issues. And also the factor that we are required to be cooped up. For some people, probably it's a big house, but for many, it is a small place. And if it's a large family, then it does become quite uncomfortable.
That is very true. Again, it's like, you have rightly pointed out with large families and small houses, this adds on to the stress part, wherein they are dealing emotionally, financially, and then physically also the space constraint. So, what do you have to say about, especially the parents will be dealing a lot. So, what would you like to tell our listeners, especially the parents?
Yes, definitely. Parenting does become quite a juggle, I must say, especially for those who are working. But I am not undermining people who are not working per se, because they definitely have a full time job anyway, which is never ending, and it's a 24/7 job, if I may call it a job, which we women do it so wholeheartedly. Though, of course, we are human, and there are times when we can give way. So it can end up in either being upset with ourselves, being upset with family members, not getting cooperation from others, we getting upset for whatever reasons, and then stems the fact that we start arguing, we have fights at home. So these are the things which generally we would be facing, besides the fact that we need a computer for each person who needs to interact with people outside. For children, they need to be attending classes, even if it's online. So each one needs to have a screen, a system to function on, because without that, connectivity is difficult. So technology is a big challenge. Interacting with others becomes a challenge. Functioning becomes a challenge at times. So all these factors do contribute to the underlying stress. They add to it, and the result is right in front of us: upsurge in mental health issues.
Any suggestions that you would like to, you know,
Um,
uh, share on this aspect
is
for
it that
parents?
Okay. So for parents, basically the one thing that we need to understand is, let's look at it this way: on the social, emotional skills, learning skills. So we have one arena which is personal, So we talk about personal competence and we talk about social competence, right? So on the personal level, for personal competence is what I see, self awareness. Do I see? Do I feel? Do I understand? One. And then what I do, again, on the personal competence continuum. So it deals with self management. On the social competence scale, say I'm just focusing currently on interactions within the household, because each one will have interaction with others outside as well, right? So on the social competence scale, what we see is, do we see our social awareness? Are we aware about what is happening? Not just on the personal level, but also the way I am interacting with others, with my family members, with people outside. And also what I do on that continuum, we deal with what is called as relationship management. So our relationship, how are we managing it? Not just being aware. So there are times when we are aware of what is happening, but we cannot do anything about it. So how are we managing that? Same thing goes on the personal front. We are aware of certain things. For example, we are aware that we have to do a certain activity, and I have 10 more activities lined up. So am I ordering them in priority? Am I doing them? Am I able to manage them effectively? So these are the four skills. Once we are equipped with them, I feel we are a lot better. I won't say perfect, because perfection is only for the almighty, the universe. For us, we, in spite of the fact that we are educated, we are experts, so-called experts in our fields, respective fields, but uh, all said and done, we are human first. So to the parents, when dealing with our children, we do find a lot of issues coming up. So while considering how we interact with our children, are we aware of thinking from our child's point of view? Especially because times are tough. So if the times are tough for us, it is a little more so for the children. We as adults can process things a lot better because of our experiences and the way we have been reading. But especially if it is very young children, they don't know what is happening in the house. All of a sudden they find things having changed, everybody's at home, or the rooms are being separated, oh, this person has to go into a room and be quarantined. So the child does not understand the meaning of the term quarantine to begin with. All these are very alarming. And what is the result? The child is going to be distressed. The child is going to keep coming to you seeking comfort. But because the child is crying and I am busy with attending to a meeting or having to finish a certain chore at home, what do? I try and push my child away. The result is, am I teaching the child the right thing? These are the signals, these are the things that our children are copying from us. They are imitating us, they are the ones that will take these same things forward. And not just forward, we are going to face the very same things as they grow older. Are we aware of that? The other thing we can do is, if it is possible to notice, it doesn't take too long actually to do all these things, but can we notice and celebrate some of our children's, when I mean children, our children's strengths, each child's strengths, the abilities, the capacity to learn and develop. We know no two persons are alike. And that also means we are talking about children. Even if it's our children, yes, we say they are our shadows, they are our reflections, but all said and done, they definitely are individuals in their own right, and they are also growing. So, with their experiences, not just with us, but with others as well, they develop into a personality different from what we are or what we anticipate it to be. So that is the other thing that we can notice, especially when they are growing. Sometimes it happens that they are very bold, they are talkative, they want to know everything. How are we interacting with them? I am not denying the fact that we ourselves are stressed as human beings because we are learning to come to terms with how to deal with this current scenario, how to move forward. Finance has gone for a toss, planning has gone for a toss, because it's like now it has become day to day. Even having to step out to buy groceries becomes something like an ordeal. So, not just for us, it is also the same for our children. What can we do then at times like these? Can we delight in the brief moments of connection that we have with our children, each child? Can we together as a family spend, even if it's a few minutes, some time together where we are laughing, chatting? Maybe it's over the dinner table, maybe it is just playing a game together where the atmosphere considerably lightens. And because of the fact that we are together, there is bonding and there is an ease in stress, a little bit at least, if not more. What
So
else can
I
we do? Yeah,
um,
sorry.
no, I would just ask you, or let's say, when all this is happening and when the children are seeing the quarantine part, the stress part, everyone at home, there is underlying, current of uncertainty and
Yes.
the preoccupancy also.
Hmm.
So, especially when the children are small, and if somebody they lose any family member, they come to know, like,
Hmm.
and I would like you to just talk about briefly how should then the parent share this with the young one.
The fact remains that we know this person has gone. So if we hide things or if we make up stories, are we helping our child? And what are we again conveying? The underlying message is that we will cook up stories and tell you things. So in my opinion, it is best if we can share things, but in a gentle manner, explaining to the child something that will not cause alarm for the child or get completely distressed. And even if the child does get distressed hearing all this, an assurance from us that yes, we are in it together, each of us is feeling a sense of kinship, a sense of belonging is what will help ease the situation.
That is easing itself to listen. Yes, because it is traumatic for children, especially to process the loss part.
Yes,
It is
of course.
very difficult.
Yeah.
So, how would you then suggest, like, okay, if they have lost, I mean, what you have rightly said, to break down, let's say, the information to the level of the children, grasping level,
Hmm.
and to their age, like, to ease down and inform them the correct information
Yes.
rather than avoiding the distress part. But yes, in subtle ways, like, okay, if that person is ill, let's pray together, or something in a unison that the family can work around.
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
definitely. Yeah.
because this is a very important thing right now, and since you deal with all the age groups, so I thought I'll just ask you also if you have come across a similar case.
In terms of someone passing away and then the parent having to deal with, as yet I have not come across, but I'm sure definitely there are many, many mental health professionals out there who would have come across all this.
Right. And anything more for the parents you were saying, and I just disturbed you because this thought
That's
just
fine.
crossed me.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So, like I said, to continue, um, we connect with our children, ensure that the connect with the children is maintained. What else can we do? Okay, so we can provide consistent age-based guidelines, limits, boundaries, and explaining in such a way that it is meant to understand, not to instruct the child. Because what happens is, we as parents, because we are in an agitated state ourselves, resort to the easiest form of interaction. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. Am I right?
Very true.
And the result turns out to be that there is rebellion, there is a refusal to um, comply, to oblige, and then there is yelling, there's screaming. So how do we go about it? So when the child screams at you, are we understanding that the child is screaming at me per se, or because the child is distressed, the child is screaming? So are we addressing, when we address the issue, are we addressing the issue, or are we letting the ego come in our way and say, oh, I don't like my child talking like this to me, so we get offended? What is important is to ensure that you tackle the task. Suppose, for example, you ask your child to help you in doing something in the kitchen, for example, and he starts saying, no way, come on, go away, I don't want to do it, and I don't like doing all these things. So what do we do instinctively? We say, no, you have to do it. I'm not asking you too much, this is something that you have to do. Now you have to get up and you have to do it. Don't we do this? We even
Mm-hmm.
throw up, or alternately what we can do is we throw our hands up in disgust and start doing the thing ourselves. So in either case, the situation actually remains, it doesn't get resolved. So what can we do? Can we try instead is, first take a minute to calm ourselves down and detach ourselves from the situation, that the child is um, restless, uneasy, helpless, or just being plain lazy, because the child is getting used to just being in bed, or laying around or things. So whereas you are really hassled, right? So what is required is first to ground ourselves, calm ourselves, and understand, does the situation require me to hit back? It's not easy, of course, and it has to be quite instant, because the child is looking at you expectantly, waiting for something coming from you. Am I right?
That is very true and very relatable example also, because now that everyone is at home, so
Yes.
this is a very common thing that is happening in the house.
Yeah. So what we can do is, you can mention, my responsibility is to get supper. And if the responsibility has already been allotted to the child earlier, then you can say, okay, this is your responsibility, I'd like you to do this. Now remember that for every minute that you delay getting up, this will mean that an hour of some other activity gets lost, something that the child wants to do, the child waits to do. That is if you've set all these rules. But if it is a very loose, fragmented thing, then at that time you can just mention, it would be helpful if you can help me, rather than explaining why the child needs to do. So yelling back is ineffective, because then it means you become your child's emotional equal. Basically, you're saying, I don't have a better way to solve my problems other than screaming. And you're actually reinforcing the bad behavior. And in the other alternative that you may do is, when you give in or back down, what are you doing? You are giving in just to get the outburst to stop. And what does the child learn? The child learns that by turning up their volume, they can avoid having to take a responsibility. In either case, what are we teaching our child? Or we alternately start reasoning. When I start to try to explain and justify the rules, I'm losing because I cannot reason with a child who's having a fit of anger. Justifying your rules means they are negotiable. It's not an issue of your child not understanding the rules. He knows it, he just wants to get his way. So each time you ask, when your child does a certain something, you can try and respond differently. When you're tempted to raise your voice and start yelling, tell yourself, stop. If you find yourself feeling like you need to explain to your child, again, stop yourself.
That
And
is
yeah,
that is very interesting. Would like to hear what you are going to say ahead.
yes. So basically, the idea is to ensure that you communicate what the child is required to do, where the child understands that you mean you need this child to your child to do that particular activity. You mean that you need this activity to be completed, and any tantrums can be dealt with later. Anything else can be dealt with later. So later, when we are calm, the situation has diffused and everything has happened. At that time, especially when you're having the family bonding time, we can pick up these things. What happens? So maybe in the form of a story, maybe in the form of some kind of narrative, like relating an incident with someone else. This is the way we can, when we are calm, at that point in time, the child is also more receptive.
Like when you are interacting with your kids and you tell them to do a particular job or any task to contribute in the work at home,
Hmm,
we should not negotiate, and also we should not lose our volume to match the volume.
correct. We can't lose our control or our cool, because that itself means you are doing it on an emotional level. The focus needs to be on the rules, responsibilities, and issues, not on emotions and power struggle. It's not a power struggle here, but it does seem like one, because the child wants to get his way. How can we get our child to follow what we want from the child? Because these are also, this is the one thing that we must always remember, these are skills that the child is picking up, subconsciously or consciously, both. And this exactly is what is going to happen to us later on in life.
Suppose if any parent does speak up in that volume because of any prior emotional thing that the parent is going through,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
I mean, mentally or emotionally, they must be having some thought process, and suddenly a refusal comes from the child to help. How should the parent then cope at that moment?
Can we help child know that this is a requirement at the moment and it needs to be done with everybody's help? So again, well, to use a crude term, business like approach, this is what needs to be done and we need to do it together. We will discuss it and discuss about this.
Okay. So it's like then communicating with the child that right now just do this task and we
Hmm.
may discuss about it later.
Yeah. Or like when the child is being very bad wording that he is using, at that time you can say, I am not going to talk to you when you're acting this way. I will be available at, say, maybe 6 to talk about why you can or cannot do a certain something. And then ensure that you carry through. Be available to talk about it, not fight about it. At 6, for example, if you've given the time 6, not earlier than that. It is not easy. And to actually incorporate this requires you to be made of steel. So it seems. but then it is doable. Once we get to being, like I said, the reason why I use the self awareness and emotional awareness, social awareness, is because of the same thing. So that all of that mounts to what is called as emotional intelligence.
Right. Mhm. So the parents have to put their foot down when such situation comes and follow it, whatever they are laying the boundaries at home, and not make it as a convenient thing that they can negotiate at one day and then be very,
Mind you,
very
not be aggressive about it.
the other day. Very true, very true.
Is not going to help in any way.
Absolutely. We need to be compassionate. We need to
Hello?
understand. We need to understand what the child
Yes,
is also going through and
yes,
appreciate the process in
yes,
totality.
yes. In fact,
Have you?
it would help a person, the parent also. I mean, I know that there is a dearth of time, but what we can do is we can try and work or look for activities that help in self awareness, self management. So once we are in control of ourselves, once we are more grounded, as I love to say, then we also can stretch out to being socially aware. And I mean here within the family, and be able to do the relationship management better.
You have beautifully, actually drawn the attention to the current situation that is happening at home,
Hmm.
locally and globally. Everyone is facing such issues now when they have children at home. Are going through it. And before we end, I would like to know, have you personally experienced any stressful situation yourself and how did you cope?
Yes, of course. When the situation started, the current pandemic, when it started, it was quite an alarming, because obviously none of us have experienced this earlier in our lives, even though we had heard of the SARS and the Ebola. But when we see it right up in front of us, it does tend to take the energy out of you, sap it out of you. So you do get alarmed, a person does get alarmed. And what I did at that time was get into mindfulness. And I do believe that nothing can help you better than mindfulness, because you are being aware of yourself, you are acknowledging, you are learning to accept, and then you're also learning to appreciate the blessings that you have.
That is so beautifully put up, and I'm sure the listeners today, especially the parents, will benefit out of whatever information you have shared and your own experience, mindfulness, and yes, emotional intelligence. They
Yes,
both will play a very important role these days.
yes. So if there's some bibliography that our viewers would like, maybe look up Power of Positivity, look up Dr. Dan Siegel, Siegel, and maybe meditations for, say, anxiety. There's Deepak Chopra, there's Dr. Brian Weiss. There are plenty of YouTube videos on all this. So I'm sure definitely will be helpful for anyone who'd be interested in it.
That is lovely information that you have shared, and I'm sure they'll also keep it in mind.
I'm sure. It is definitely helpful. And reading up books, maybe articles on parenting, and then ensuring that we keep our intentions to not punishment but helping the child understand consequences will help us in the long run.
With that, it is time to end this wonderful session, and the sanctity will be, intact with all the tips that you have shared for the parents, and this too shall pass.
Yes, of course. Wishing everyone the best of health, the best of mindfulness. Stay aware, stay safe, be safe, and ensure happiness of the family.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Anita, for your time. Hope to catch up with you in future with some other important information, whereas family, unity is concerned.
Yes.
Thanks a
Thank you.
lot.
Thank you so much for counting on me and for having me over on the show. I wish you, your family, and your viewers all the very best.
Thanks a lot. With that, we end the session.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow at the same time with another speaker and their own perspective regarding mental health. Till then, stay safe. Bye.
Bye.